Chalaji, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So this will be the first programming class of year 2024. So I will first going to let you know, demonstrate from where to download or install the relevant tools that you will be using with me. So this class will be exclusive for AS and A2 level students. The tool that I'm going to use, the number one tool is, I'm going to use two programming languages. Abed, two programming languages. One fake programming, what we call as the pseudocodes. Okay, the fake codes, the flowcharts, and then structured programming. So we're going to use 5 different tools to learn about the programming. Now, out of those 5, 4 are part of our syllabus. Structured English, flowcharts, pseudocodes, and then any one programming language. It can be VB.NET or it can be Python. Yes, there is another programming language, Java, but it's not popular. Why it's not popular with the Cambridge students? Because the Java is quite different than pseudocodes and flowcharts and structured English. Okay, so we need to mix all those 4 programming concepts: flowcharts, pseudocodes, structured English, and one programming language. Okay. All right, very first tool, Ubaid Khan. So we simply going to Google it, download Visual Basic 2022. That's Visual Studio 2022. Community. Okay, everybody, just see what I have just written in the Google search bar. I'm going to click on this link, and you can simply see that we have a number of options to choose from. I'm going to choose this community, which is free to download. No trials, no money. We just wanted to learn. And this studio, Visual Studio setup is more than enough. Now look closely. I have downloaded the very first tool. This skill is will be in demand. It's still in demand, it will be more in demand. I'm just double clicking on this setup. Continue. Can you all see this? Okay, it will going to take some time to download. Maybe at your end, it will going to take a bit of a more time. And it's about to be launched, this Visual Studio installer. It's taking some time. Yes, we are in no hurry. Okay, so there it is. If you will be installing it for the very first time, you might find the button next here, because I have installed it previously already. The system, the Visual Studio is in my system. So I'm going to click on this update. You may need to click on next, okay? Because it's previously installed in my system. I'm clicking update. So you will going to see a number of options. Okay, people, meanwhile it's being installed. Let me show you the another tool, the second tool. Meanwhile, this is, happening at the back end, behind the scenes. Let's try to look at the second tool. The second tool is, again, let's go to Google. Let's go to Google and download Python. Now, before we download a sophisticated IDE, integrated development environment, the PyCharm or Anaconda or Spider or etc., the very first thing that we need in our system is the Python compiler that we can get from python.org itself. You go there and you simply click on this download Python. And after getting this done, you will going to get a program which will not going to be more than 25, 26 or 27 MB. It's a small program, it's just a compiler. It's not a sophisticated IDE, but you will be needing this file beforehand. Okay. For Python, you have to download 2 things. One is this Python compiler from python.org. You simply double click it and install. That's it. There is no complication in it. After doing this, then you go back to Mr. Google and write Python PyCharm. It is recommended instead of Spider, Anaconda, or any other flavor of Python. PyCharm is the most better version for the students to learn from, and not the PyCharm professional, but the PyCharm. You have to scroll it down. Beta, I'm going to show this to you once again. I have Googled download PyCharm. This is the very first link, which is from the JetBrains. Okay, click on this link. This window will open, and you scroll down and click on PyCharm Community Edition. Okay, so once you download this, you can again very easily, sleekly, without any complication, install the software. There is nothing to worry about. Any other details are not required. Details are required here, which is taking a bit of a time. So once you will going to have this thing installed, this Visual Basic thing, the setup that we have downloaded from the Microsoft Visual Studio website, the Community Edition, we got this file, this Visual Studio setup. We double clicked on it, and after pressing next, we landed here. Here you will going to have a number of options to choose from. I'm going to just click here on modify, so you can also see these options that you have to choose to install. Instead of modify, you will going to click on next or install. Okay, so first, when you will be installing it for the very first time, all these boxes will be unchecked. So you will going to check this box. Okay, this is the box that you need to check. What this box is? This is .NET desktop development using number of languages, but this is the box that you will going to check. Solid? Can you all see that? This .NET thing in purple color. Okay. So all of these options, the only two options that we will be needing to learn the Visual Basic. This is the IntelliCode. Let me just show it to you by having a magnifier, so you can have a clear picture. So you shall not make mistake. This is the thing that you will going to select, none other. And after that, just select these two, IntelliCode and Just in Time Debugger. That's it. It will going to require around 4 point something, around 5 GB of space in your laptop or PC. Okay. All right, so I'm going to close this because both of the applications are already installed in my system. I was just doing it so you people can learn. Just closing it up. There we go. There we go. There we go. So those two tools look something like this. Once installed, you can always go to your search bar, write down Visual or VIS. You must see this tool right there. Okay, people, click on it. Stay with me. So once you click on this Visual Studio, okay, so Visual Studio, once you have installed it, if you will going to be running it for the very first time, click on create a new project. And after that, select, because if you will be doing it for the very first time, these things will not be selected by default. So you have to select Visual Basic. Pathan, Visual Basic. And then from here, this is because I've done this already. You have to select it for the very first time. So in this third column, you have to select console. You will going to have 1 or 2 options popped up. Okay. Look, initially, you're going to get something like this. Everything will be showing it to you, and you will be finding hard time finding which one to choose. So select Visual Basic, select console. And there can be more than one option still. You have to choose console app, which is .NET Framework. Which one? .NET Framework. So choose this. Next, name your project anything. or just let it be by default and then create. So this is the first place that where we will going to run it and program. So this will be the environment in which you will be programming. So we will going to learn by some of the students who are studying from me from another place in a college, and most of them are doing it for the very first time. Some of the students haven't used the laptops or PCs even. So they might be using laptops and PCs for the very first time. So this is where we will going to program. Guys, before getting into the VB.NET programming language, we will going to start a very humble beginning from in algorithms. Something for your copies, people. Let me just make it a heading. Algorithms. We all know the definition of algorithms. Al-Khwarizmi, a Muslim scientist. Algorithms, a step-by-step solution of any problem. But that problem may not be a computer science problem or programming problem. That problem can be of maybe some of any kind. Yet we can write down the algorithm for that problem. If you write down any solution to any problem with step-by-step approach, we call it algorithm. So there are a number of types of algorithms, and number one is pseudocode. Let's start with the structured English. It can be structured Urdu or Russian or Mandarin or French, but structured English because we were once British colony. Structured English. No, this is not the reason. It's because the most popular way or most common way of giving a step-by-step solution of computer problems are in English most of the time. Some people may not agree. Probably Germans and Japanese and Chinese they may not agree with me, but still. Structured English. Step by step. Step by step. Solution in English language. Then we will going to, and this is part of the syllabus. We need to learn that, okay? Structured English. Then we have flowcharts. Mostly we call it pictorial representation because it's in the form of pictures. Representation of what? Representation of a solution to a problem. We have flow lines and flow charts. That's why we call it flow chart. Okay, so we have structured English. We have flow chart. Now let's talk about pseudocodes. Abad, one name for it. Fake codes. They are codes. It looks like a programming language code, but they are fake, or just like does not, because they cannot run on machine. Fake codes. Does not follow. Does not follow syntax of any particular computer language. Almost looks like one. So most of the programmers, when they talk to each other, they talk to each other in a form of pseudocodes language. Because the Java programmer, the VB.NET programmer, the Python programmer, the C Sharp programmer, the JSL query language programmer, they all can talk to each other in the form of pseudocode because they understand pseudocode. They might not know, and maybe in Java you write down println, in C you write down printf, in Python you just write print, in VB.NET you write down console.writeLine or message box. But they all know to display a message, we write down output. In pseudocode we call it output or print. So all the programmers might not know what keyword to use in what language, but they all know what it is called in the pseudocode. So pseudocode is like an English language for the programmers. So for like if you go to a foreign university, maybe in Canada, and there can be Nigerian students, Japanese students, Indian students, Pakistani students, etc., etc. But they all are talking to each other in what language? Probably English language. So all the programmers, they when wanted to share the ideas with one another, they talk in pseudocode. So pseudocode is an English language. Yeah. So the fourth one, the tool that we will going to use, that will be programming. So programming, we'll be using Visual Basic, .NET, but console applications, console app, and similarly in Python. And in this, we will be using Visual Studio 2022. And here we will be using PyCharm Community, which is free of cost. Community Edition, along with the compiler Python 3.10 above. 3.11, 3.12, 3.13, something like that. So these are the things that we will be using. Next step. Let me help you out with a bit of how to translate a pseudocode into VB.NET. So I'm going to make a small chart. Let's say this. VB.NET. Pseudocode. Transferable skills. Okay. So VB.NET and pseudocode. In VB.NET, if we need to declare a variable, in pseudocode, if we need to declare a variable, we write something like this. Declare the name of the variable, which can be price, colon, the data type, write something like that. In VB.NET, we can do this like this. You might not be understanding this declaration thing, Osman Jaffa, but it's okay. We will be doing it like one step at a time. Just right now, just make this chart with us because we will be using it for the rest of the classes. So dim price as the data type. VB.NET is not case sensitive. Maybe if you will be using an assignment operator in pseudocode, you will be using the sign of equals to in VB.NET. This is the second thing. Maybe if you will be using to output the data, output enter name, in double quotes the message. In VB.NET, to output a message, we have to write down console, write on console, write line, the message. Okay? There we go. To input a message in pseudocode, we write down input and the name of the variable. You can suppose any name of the variable. And in VB.NET, we write down, this is a little bit different, my variable equals to console.readline. Readline means input, write line means output. People, there are some more things. For example, instead of repeat until, we write down loop, do loop until. Instead of procedure, we write down sub. There will be a couple of more things. That's why I'm just keeping it, still I'm leaving few lines available in this chart, which we will going to do later on when we will be needing it. Right now, we just need to learn that far. For Python, I have a complete guide made, Python guide made by Sarvandisha. I'm going to share it with you, and I'm going to start teaching it to you from there, one step at a time. So let's start. And let's try to do the very first program of ours today. So, Bismillah, let's begin. The very first program, my first program. Let's Bohr off. My first algo. So for example, people, the question is, hello world, print a message on screen 10 times. Okay, so but the very first thing that we need to learn, because through this we will be learning how to write it down in pseudocode, how to start the very first thing that we are going to do, how to loop, how to iterate, and there will be some intrinsic details as well in this whole small little thing. I'm going to put it all the details in. So let's say if you wanted to print your name on the screen, you can write something like that. Output. Message can be anything, can be your name. It can be a message. My spellings are correct? Am I correct? Is that correct? Hopefully. So if this is a message, and if I wanted to print this message 10 times, so there is one way that I can write down the same command. The command is to display the message on the screen 10 times. So you people might be thinking that I'm going to write down this thing 10 times, which is, I'm not. I'm just going to let you know. So you can write down this output message 10 times, and this message will going to pop up on the screen 10 times. This is pseudocodes, okay? The method that we will going to use for my first algo, whatever the program, I will be writing it on the book, on the notebook. That will be in a form of pseudocode or flowcharts. But when we need to run the program, we will be running it in Visual Basic and in PyCharm, in Python, okay, on computer. So we already know this. Output means console.writeLine in VB.NET. So let's try to do that. And then later on, I'm going to use a loop. So this is your very first Hello World program. So console.writeLine. The messages. Okay, so this is the program. If I'm going to run it, there is another helping word I need. Don't ask me right now, what does this mean? Yes. I've just written one message, that is console.writeLine. Okay, so if I'm going to run the program, it will going to display this message on the console. The console is that black screen that will going to pop up, and it will going to display the message once only, like this. Can you see the message? Can you? Okay. So if I want to do this number of times, I can give this command to the programming language number of times. And if I'm going to run the program, it will going to do it for like 5 times, maybe something like this. But if I wanted to do this thing like 500 times, this will be silly me to do this copy paste 500 times. So what we were going to do, we're going to use a looping structure. The for loop. I'm going to run it from 0 to 9, or it can be from 1 to 10. So from here on, we will quickly evolve into something like this. Something like this. Let's call it loops. Iterations. In any programming world, we have few programming concepts. So people, the very first concept of any programming language is iterations, loops, repetitions. It's like to iterate, to loop, to run. Certain amount of, or to run number of instructions. For number of times. If you wanted to run some number of instructions. Okay? For number of times, we use repetitions, iterations, or loops. But how many types of loop we have in all the programming languages? The very first one is known as count controlled, which is known as for next, or some people call it for and for. Then we have conditional loops. What do we call the do while loop? Thanks. So we have two categories. One is known as precondition. To run some instructions for number of times, we have loops. Loops have 3 types. Basically 2 types, and that the second type is further divided into 2 more types. It's post condition. Okay, so precondition is known as while, because the condition is checked beforehand. While condition and one. That's great. Repeat and few instructions. This is not snake. This is mentioning that there will be some instructions in between. Sorry, while and while. Guys, one thing which I also need to make sure that I must be using all caps when I'm writing pseudocode. So while make this habit of yours with me, while and while it's a good practice. From today on, it's important. Repeat until condition. And again, I'm going to correct this as well. For and few instructions and then next. So I'm going to use the very first crowd control loop for next. Okay, people. So I'm going to just convert this pseudocode. Sorry, I'm just going to convert this VB code into pseudocode. Okay, Osman? Osman Jacob. So for x, what was the variable that I've used there? X. So for x assignment operator, because in VB we use equals to, in pseudocode we use this instead of equals to 0 to 9. Instead of console.writeLine, we write down output. The message was, this was the message. And next. Okay, so some people might say that we should write down next x, still okay, still okay. And in pseudocode, because pseudocode does not follow any language, particular language syntax, so we can also write down something like this. These all things are going to work in pseudocode, but not in any particular programming language. So how this program is going to run? This is the next thing which I just really wanted to teach you people when you will be using any programming language like VB.NET or PyCharm. And this is the thing that will going to make you programmers. This is running your program one line at a time. One line at a time. So when you will be running lengthy programs, and you can run it line by line, you can know at what part what is happening. Okay. People, look, I can run it like in one go and I can get the result. But watching how your program runs, because whenever we will be now learning these pseudocodes, we will be learning these programs, pseudocodes, flowcharts, thinking of it, not thinking, but rather believing that we are the programmers now. So when we will be writing the program, we make sure how does our program looks like to the user who will going to use our program, because we are the programmers now, and how our program is going to run on machine, behind the scene, how our code will going to run, how the values of certain variables, arrays, ADTs will going to change at what level, what could be the logical errors and so and so. So that's why we need both of knowledge of the both sides. Okay. So let's see how this program runs. Let's a little bit zoom it bit more. Okay. So this is, I'm running this code line by line. This for loop is going to run for the very first time. This is the first iteration. This is the first round. We can go and hover the mouse and have a look inside this variable x. What is this? 0. So this is round 1, 0. Right now on console, I cannot see anything. So this instruction we're going to run for the very first time. This line has been executed. By going at the console, I can see this message had been displayed. This next, Ubaid Razan, Ubaid Khan, this next will going to iterate for loops variable automatically with +1. Whenever you go and fetch this next, it adds 1 to this variable, whatever the name of this variable is. Let's have a look. As soon as I'm going to run this next, go and check. What is inside x? It's 1. It was 0. And this is round 2. As soon as you run this instruction, you can see that. Okay. Next, this is 0, 1, 2, this is round 3. And this is going to run for the 3rd time. Can you feel it? So this is how you can understand how the programs actually runs. One line at a time. Okay, solid. So this is how we can run the program in Visual Basic and .NET. I'm going to quickly write down the same program because we are doing both of the languages. Maybe aage chalke, ahead, I will be just giving you the pseudocode. Some of the people might like to code in PyCharm. That's okay. Some of the people might like to code in VB.NET. Still fine. So I'll be checking both of the codes. And if some of you are doing in both of the languages, that's great. This is a very small program that I was doing with the class. A very small one. Okay, class, have a look. I'm going to write down a small program. Okay, let me show you. How does this looks like, beta? When you will be running it for the very first time, something like this will going to pop up. You can name your program. You can give it any location. Okay. There should be a Python version appearing here. Right now, my system has Python 3.12. Okay. There should be a Python version showing up here. Click on create. Okay. If you will be running it for the very first time, it might be going to take a bit of a time. Might be going to run a little bit fast. Okay, people. So we are here. Right now we does not have anything right now here. So I'm going to go and click on something like this, right click and click on new and add a Python file. Okay, I'm just because of creating a new project, I'm going to add a new Python file in this project. I'm going to show it to you again. Look, going there, right clicking, new and Python file. You can name your Python file anything. I'm going to call it like SSS, maybe. Python file. It is there. Line. So I'm going to write down the same program. This one. This one. Here. So for, can you people see that? Is it visible? Yes, sir. For X. Now the syntax of Python is a little bit different. For X in range, bracket start from 0 till 10. And then colon. Okay. Instead of console or write line, instead of output, we write down print. The message will be the same these days. So once I'm going to run this program in this Python, you does not need to write down next. It will going to identify itself with the other indentation. So I'm going to run this program and see the results. The results are produced. It should be printed 10 times. 1, or you can start counting from 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So there is a reason behind this, people, because when you write down 0, 10, this program will going to iterate 9 times in Python. Okay. I can quickly give you one more example. But pay attention, this could be our last program of today's class. Instead of the message, the question is, I wanted to print the name. I want to print series of numbers. The main target is to understand programming language. The main target is to understand at least the for loop today, okay? Print series of numbers from 1 to 10. Ahil, Rahil. So we need to print the series of numbers from 1 to 10. In a form of pseudocode, I can write something like this. For, I can intentionally change the name of the variable so you people can know that we can name this for variable anything. For I, I'm going to start it from 1 because the very first number I wanted to print is 1. So for I, starting with 1 to 10, output, not a message, but this variable itself, I, because we know that this variable will going to iterate like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And next. Abed Khan. So for I, 1 to 10. If I wanted to write it down in Visual Basic, the beauty of using programming language is that I'm going to just change it something like that. I don't have to write it again. 1 to 10. Console dot write line and X. Okay, I've changed the variable. So let's change the variable. Let's change the variable. For I, 1 to 10, console dot write line I, and then next. Now look very closely. I'm going to run this one line at a time. I'm going to do the same thing in Python as well. Okay, people, look. When the program starts running, inside I, for the very first iteration, this will be 1. Now this is a variable. This I has what inside of it? 1. That 1 will be printed. That 1 will be right on the console. So output 1. Let's have a look. Right now on console, there's nothing. As soon as this instruction runs, I can see 1. Can you see 1? I can see 1. Next, automatically add 1s to this variable. It becomes 2 now. And as soon as you run this instruction, it becomes 2. 3. 4. I can run the whole program in one go, like quickly. That was the 1, 2, 10. The series has been printed. Now here, let's do the same thing here in Python. So for X in range, we start with 1. If I end it 10, it will going to print my names from 1 to 9. Let's have a look. Let's check. We have time. So print X, or I can change the name of the variable from X to I, because we have changed the name of the variable. Should I run this? Let's run this. So the values has been printed from 1 till 9. So in Python, whenever the upper bound or the value, the last value that is given to you, you have to add 1 into it. 1 in range 1 and 11, and you can see that it will going to print your numbers from 1 to 10. Okay. So this is the Python code, this is the VB code, and this is the pseudo code. So the VB people and the Python people, they can always talk to each other in pseudocode. In AS, in paper 2, we will be doing pseudocodes, but in A2, in paper 4, we will be either doing Python or VB.NET. But believe me, you in AS level, if you will be running programs like these, if you will be coding by yourself, pseudocode will become super easy for you, because converting a language into pseudocode is no big deal.